Ok, class, en la clase de hoy tenemos occupancy. Occupancy tiene que ver con la disponibilidad. Occupancy y vacancy, vacancy, occupancy. Practiquen su pronunciación. En esta clase tenemos el tema de hoy con 2 ejercicios de vocabulario. Vamos a hablar de la gente que renta. Vamos a hablar también cuando están disponibles. Esta clase se trata mucho para property management. Los que trabajan en los departamentos, en la oficina. De hecho, tenemos aquí un email del property manager. Property manager, si tú eres property manager. Después de los 2 ejercicios de vocabulary, también tenemos, como en todas las clases, nuestros 2 ejercicios de listening. Listening. Vamos a ver el guión de la conversación. En esta clase tenemos la conversación entre el property manager y parece que alguien está interesado en vivir en los departamentos o en las villas. Después vamos a hacer el ejercicio de speaking, de hablar, y tenemos el ejercicio de writing y lo vamos a hacer todo en inglés. ¿Listos? Okay, this is class number 3. Unit 3, occupancy. This class is for property managers. This is a property management class. In today's session, we're gonna take a look at an email from the property manager. We're also doing a couple of vocabulary exercises. After that, we always have 2 more listening exercises. In today's session, you're gonna listen to a property manager and a prospective tenant. Someone is interested in renting out the apartments, renting out, leasing the villas, the apartments. Okay, so let's take a look at today's class. Occupancy. To start the class, we have 2 questions. Why do landlords want their properties to have occupants? Let's get started with this question first. Why do landlords want their properties to have occupants? In your notebook, prepare your notes. For example, write the question and then the answer using the question. Landlords want their properties to have occupants because any ideas? Landlords want their properties to have occupants because number 1, money. Occupants pay money. They pay rent. So, rent money. Number 2, I hear people say it's not good for the places to be abandoned. abandoned. What is it like that? Or they need to be in use. Because they collect rent money. They don't want empty properties, right? Well, we can say that, even though it's the same thing. That's the question, but let's just practice if you don't have any ideas. By the end of today's session, you should be able to answer this question with no problems. Practice. So make sure you put all these questions in your notes. Put all these questions in your notes. Practice some answers. Occupants. Another word for occupants here, they say tenants. Number 2, what kind of rules must tenants follow? What kind of rules must tenants follow? At the place where you live, do you rent? Or if you rent, you are a tenant. What kind of rules do they have in the property you rent? What kind of rules in the property you rent? For example, where I rent, they have a rule. No pets. No pets allowed. No pets allowed. No animals allowed. No pets allowed. Another rule is only one car or one parking space per apartment. So each apartment only has one space. So the rule is only use your space. Don't use other spaces in the parking lot. No pets allowed. One car per space. One car per apartment. Or one. You can have another car, but you cannot use the parking. What kind of rules do they have at your place? Today we're going to look at some rules. Okay, let's practice the get ready. Why do landlords want their properties to have occupants? Landlords want their properties to have occupants because they collect rent money. Occupants pay. They don't want empty properties. You know, empty properties, you can have people go in the empty house, empty apartment, and they can paint or they can throw trash. So they don't want the empty properties. There could be problems. What kind of rules must tenants follow? The people, the occupants. What kind of rules must the tenants follow? no pets allowed, parking spaces rules, maybe sometimes things with the trash can, the trash bin rules, pay the rent on time rules. Now put these two questions in your notebook and prepare your answers before we go to the next exercise. You can pause this class, pause the video. Why do landlords want their properties to have occupants? What kind of rules must tenants follow? If you have those questions and you practiced your answers, let's continue with the class. Let's continue. Occupancy. In today's class, we have an email from Kelly Walters. She's the Westview Property Management. And this is to Doug Ellis, property owner. And the subject is problems on 5th Street. Let's listen to the email and follow with your eyes. Listen to the email, follow with your eyes, and then we're going to read it out loud. Follow the email with your eyes, and then we'll read it out loud. Okay, let me get the audio for you. Remember that you have the audio right here on the platform. You can listen and repeat the audio. I recommend repeating the audio maybe once or 2 times, 3 times. Okay, let's listen. So keep in mind, this is an email. The email is from the property managers, the property management company. It's to the property owner. The property owner. There's problems on 5th Street. Problems on 5th Street. Ready? Listen and follow with your eyes.
Unit 3, Occupancy. Exercise 5, page 9. From Kelly Walters, Westview Property Management. To Doug Ellis, property owner. Subject: problems on 5th Street. Dear Mr. Ellis, there are some problems with the apartment complex that you own. For one, the vacancy rate is high. With our budget, we can barely maintain the property. And nobody wants to rent poorly maintained apartments. Consequently, occupants don't stay long. Many units are currently vacant. To improve the occupancy rate, we must handle cleaning and repairs more promptly. Also, we are having trouble enforcing policies. Apparently, one tenant sublet her apartment. That violates the lease. However, we did not notice for several months. The subtenant ultimately left major damage in the apartment. More on-site staff would help prevent these situations. I'd like to increase the budget for staffing and maintenance. What do you think? Sincerely, Kelly Walters, Associate Property Manager.
Okay. From Kelly Walters. Property management. Westview property management. To Doug Ellis, property owner. Subject: problems on 5th Street. Dear Mr. Ellis, there are some problems with the apartment complex that you own. For one, the vacancy rate is high. With our budget, we can barely maintain the property, and nobody wants to rent poorly maintained apartments. Consequently, occupants don't stay long. Many units are currently vacant. To improve occupancy rate, we must handle cleaning and repairs more promptly. Also, we are having trouble enforcing policies. Apparently, one tenant sublet her apartment. That violates the lease. However, we did not notice for several months. The subtenant ultimately left major damage in the apartment. More on-site staff would help prevent these situations. I'd like to increase the budget for staffing and maintenance. What do you think? Sincerely, Kelly Walters, Associate Property Manager. Okay, she has some ideas for this property. Let's take a look at the questions. We have the exercise for reading. Read the email, then choose the correct answers. What is the main idea of the email? The owner must select more responsible occupants. The managers do not have enough money to maintain the property. The apartment complex should be sold as soon as possible. The property value will increase with more tenants. What do you guys think? A, B, C, or D? The managers do not have enough money to maintain the property. With our budget, we can barely maintain the property. Budget means money. So that's what the email is about. Money. Number 2. What is not part of the problem? What is not mentioned in the email that is part of the problem? Or it's mentioned in the email maybe, but it's not a problem. A recent policy violation? Yeah, remember somebody sublet her apartment? High vacancy? Yeah, they said we have a high vacancy. Poor maintenance practices? Yep, they said we need to do better job. Oh, this is the suggestion. This is not a problem. Too many staff members. More on-site staff would help. More staff would help. This is too many. Okay, we found it. So, letter C. What does the woman suggest? Changing the lease to allow subletting? No, that's the violation. Hiring more people to work at the complex? Yes. Requiring a subtenant to pay for damages? No, that's the violation. We don't want subtenants. Advertising. Mm, I don't think she said anything about advertising. No, she said we need to handle cleaning and repairs. So she suggests hiring more people, more staff. More staff on site. Excellent. Okay, guys, for today's class, we have a vocabulary list. Number 1, own. Number 2, vacancy rate. Number 3, rent, to rent. 4, occupants. Occupants. And we got number 5, vacant. 6, occupancy rate. 7, sublet. Lease. Subtenant. And that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you can put budget in there. Okay, guys, this is the vocabulary list for today's class. Ok, tenemos los ejercicios de vocabulario para la clase de occupancy. Aquí está nuestra lista de vocabulario, apúntala en tu cuaderno, toma apuntes, recuerda siempre en los ejercicios de conversación poner todas las preguntas de la industria de bienes raíces en tu cuaderno para que tengas las preguntas para practicarlas y también para que puedas preparar tus respuestas con más calma y más paciencia. Ok, tenemos la lista de vocabulario porque tenemos 2 ejercicios con nuestra lista de vocabulario el día de hoy. Pon estas 10 palabras y mete de una vez la de budget. Y vamos a hacer en inglés totalmente 2 ejercicios de vocabulario. En el primero, recuerda que tenemos, como en las otras clases, siempre nos ponen los significados del diccionario. Directo del diccionario. Lo que quiere decir que tú también puedes ir al diccionario y ver más ejemplos. En el diccionario siempre tenemos ejemplos en cada palabra con su significado y nos dan ejemplos donde lo utilizan en declaraciones completas. Así que te recomiendo utilizar y poner esta lista de hoy en el diccionario también, aparte de este curso, en un diccionario en línea. ¿Listos para los ejercicios de vocabulario? Lo vamos a hacer todo totalmente en inglés. Vocabulary. Number 3. Match the words or phrases 1 through 5 with the definitions A through E. Guys, remember that the definitions are straight from the dictionary. So I recommend taking this vocabulary list and going over the list with your dictionary. I recommend the Cambridge Dictionary or dictionary.com or just the Google Dictionary. Let's do a couple of vocabulary exercises. We have 2 vocabulary exercises in today's class. Number 1, lease. Number 2, occupant. 3, sublet. 4, vacancy rate. 5, vacant. Definition A. Someone who lives in or uses a particular building. Someone who lives in a building. Or maybe they use it for business. This is the occupant. Okay, put the definition in your notes. Someone who lives in a particular building, or someone who uses a particular building. Definition B. The number of units in a particular building or complex that are empty. Empty units. Empty units. Empty means vacant. Oh, but this is the number in total. It says the number, not just empty. So it's the vacancy rate. It's the total number. The number of units. So vacant, it's probably going to be empty. This one right here says shorter. It just says empty, unoccupied. Unoccupied, vacant, empty. Letter D. Next, letter C. An agreement between a landlord and a tenant. That's called the lease, or they call it the contract, some places, or the lease, which is the contract, the agreement. That's where you have all the details and the rules and how much you have to pay. E. To be a tenant of a property and to let someone else live there in exchange for money. To be a tenant of a property and to let someone else live there. Okay, so you rent a property and then you rent the property to somebody else. That's called sublet. It's a violation in the example from today's class. Sublet. You are not the owner, you are only renting, and then you rent the property to somebody else to make extra money. So it's not fair. It's probably illegal. Let's see. Is sublet illegal? Is sublet illegal? It's not a crime. Many happens with the landlord's blessing. Or eviction. The landlord will give you an eviction. Eviction means bye-bye. Put this in your vocabulary. Eviction. The act of forcing someone to leave a house or a building or a piece of land. Yeah, so landlords don't like subletting. They don't like it. And you have to obtain the landlord's permission. May have to pay for damages, like today's class. Okay, so that was interesting. Let's do another exercise. Fill in the blanks with the correct words or phrases from the word bank. Occupancy rate. Own. Rent. Subtenant. Your job is to fill in the blank. Number 1. The woman decided to blank rather than to buy an apartment. She doesn't want to buy. she said she's going to rent. The woman decided to rent. The doctors occupy the office building, but they do not own it. See, you can occupy, you can lease for business like the doctors. Before I got this office, I remember looking at a different office, but they were renting to doctors only. They wanted a building just full of doctors. While the man was away, he let a subtenant. Oh yeah, you can do that. Like if you go on vacation, it doesn't seem too illegal or crazy if you're gone for a while, but not regular. If a building is in a desirable location, if people really like the location, it's desirable. It has a high occupancy rate. Means it's always occupied. High numbers with the occupants. Now listen and read the email again. According to the email, exercise 5. What is the rule about subletting in the complex? Subletting. Let's take a look back at the email and the rule that they mention. Here's the email.
Unit 3, Occupancy. Exercise 5, page 9.
From Kelly Walters, Westview Property Management. To Doug Ellis, property owner. Subject: Problems on 5th Street. Dear Mr. Ellis, there are some problems with the apartment complex that you own. For one, the vacancy rate is high. With our budget, we can barely maintain the property. And nobody wants to rent poorly maintained apartments. Consequently, occupants don't stay long. Many units are currently vacant. To improve the occupancy rate, we must handle cleaning and repairs more promptly. Also, we are having trouble enforcing policies. Apparently, one tenant sublet her apartment. That violates the lease. However, we did not notice for several months. The subtenant ultimately left major damage in the apartment. More on-site staff would help prevent these situations.
Okay, here it is. In the policy, it's a violation, violates the lease, the policies, and the subtenant left major damage. What is the rule about subletting in the complex? It is a violation. It is not allowed, not permitted. Subletting is not permitted. Subletting is not allowed in the complex. Now, listen to a conversation between a property manager and a prospective tenant. So, if you're a property manager, focus, listen. And look at the script.
Exercises 6 and 7, page 9.
So, what do you think of the apartment?
It's perfect. I think I'd like to rent it.
Great. Let's start the paperwork.
Oh, I have a question. I'm traveling later this year, and I'll be gone for about 3 months.
Okay, so the apartment will be vacant?
That's what I want to talk about. Can I sublet it?
According to the terms of the lease, you can't. But if the subtenant you find is approved by the head office...
Of course. I just prefer having someone there while I'm gone.
Actually, we do too. Having an occupant prevents break-ins.
Exactly. Anyway, let's start that paperwork.
Okay, now we have some questions. Let's take a look. It says, number 1, the man plans to leave the apartment for a few months. Yes, that's true. According to the company's lease, subletting is allowed. False. In the lease, she said it's not allowed. You cannot. No permission. The man decides to rent the apartment. Yes, he says, okay, let's do the paperwork. Let's do the contract, the lease.
Let's start that paperwork.
Let's start the paperwork means I decided that I'm going to sign the contract. That's what paperwork means. Now for homework, I want you to listen and get the missing words. You have to catch the missing words. That's the next task. Ready?
9.
So, what do you think of the apartment?
It's perfect. I think I'd like to rent it.
It's perfect. I think I'd like to rent it.
Great. Let's start the paperwork.
Let's start the paperwork.
Oh, I have a question. I'm traveling later this year, and I'll be gone for about 3 months.
I'll be gone for about 3 months.
Okay, so the apartment will be vacant?
So the apartment will be vacant?
That's what I want to talk about. Can I sublet it?
Can I sublet it?
According to the terms of the lease, you can't. But if the subtenant you find is approved by the head office...
Of course.
The subtenant you find. If the subtenant you find is approved by the head office. Excellent. Now I want you to get the audio track. You have it here. You have the MP3 right here on the platform. And listen. Listen to the audio track and catch the missing words just like I showed you so you can practice your listening. Excellent class. Fantastic.